Well, Eric, death
taxes,
and untimely Suns turnovers.
and just like that, the Phoenix Suns win streak is officially over as the Suns fell to the Minnesota Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, 121-113 on their home court at Footprint Center. What was a great first half, a fun first half, and ended up flipping the switch as soon as Chris Finch got kicked out of the game. Welcome into PHNX Suns. I'm Eric. That's Steven. Noah's behind the Mac. And we're sad today. We're sad because the Suns handed the Minnesota Timberwolves a win like they didn't even want it, Steven.
I mean, this one felt a lot like games that we've seen happen multiple times this season. Tons of untimely turnovers after the Suns established rhythm, a lead, and playing the game on their terms. Not closing the half, not closing quarters.
It's a tough combination. What do you think it was about the second half? Because I put a tweet out there talking about how you need to, as a team, find a way to get Devin Booker more involved in that second half. Mm-hmm. And I got a lot of responses, correctly observing that Minnesota's defense also ticked up a couple notches there as well. Was this more the Suns handing the Timberwolves a win, or was this the Timberwolves flipping a switch that maybe the Suns just don't have?
This was more the Suns conceding after they already established, and then Minnesota taking and smelling blood in the water and just running away with it.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like to me, because the first half, albeit a rather higher scoring one in terms of the pace of it, they had the lead going into halftime, and they had some rhythm. They were taking Minnesota out of some of the actions they wanted to run, and they were in turn scoring on their end of the court. And it just dissipated. Live ball turnover after turnover after turnover after a timeout after another live ball turnover.
Oh, and I think you forgot the turnovers.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a little extra bit in there.
Yep.
And
sure.
we were so ready to jump into how disappointing of a loss it is. I forgot to tell everybody, of course, we're presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHNX365 when you sign up and find out why, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And I'm just so rude. I'm a terrible host. Thank you to everybody who is watching us, who's live in YouTube now, joining us later on YouTube on audio or on TV. Bees, Kev, Raw, That Dude, King Nacho, Exodus, Honcho, JDQ, everybody who's in the chat. Thank you so much. We do have a couple super chats pouring in that pertain to the question I just asked, so let's get to those a little bit earlier. Marcus626 said, with a $4.99 super chat, thank you, Marcus. Wolves fan here. Y'all didn't give it away. Wolves punked them and took it.
I mean, thank you for tuning in. Let me be respectful.
Yes.
Firstly, but I very much disagree with that when we watch Grayson Allen dribble up the court and dribble off his leg. And that might have been right after a timeout, or definitely was after a stop. And then we see Devin Booker do something very similar to that in one of those two contexts as well. So you can talk about getting punked, but when you are quite literally giving the ball away to your opponents, there's nothing about being punked about that. That's quite literally a lack of execution. Mm-hmm. But if you want to run away with the punking thing, then I mean you can go for it.
Well, can it be two things are true at once? I mean, I do think the Timberwolves, if they didn't punk, they punched the Suns. And Espo said it in the chat, the Suns just don't know how to respond to that, right? So maybe initially it was Minnesota like flip this switch, they hit this gear. It was like as soon as Chris Finch gets ejected, where all of a sudden they're playing with their hair lit on fire. Mm-hmm. And there are some teams that can match that. There are some teams that when they get punched, when another team gets going, and we've seen iterations of Suns teams in the past be able to do this, they go, oh, bet. Oh, okay, that's what we're doing? And this team, a few times this season, they've been able to, but a majority of the time, it feels like when the going gets rough, the rough gets to them. Instead of it motivating them and maybe turning them into like, okay, we're going to match you now.
But was it, my question is, was it the rough that got to them? Or was it the turnovers that led to Minnesota seeing that there was an opportunity to seize and them being able to stamp their identity based off of the Suns' lack of execution? Was it Minnesota just coming off the half saying, no, we're just going to be buff and just push you over with every chance we get? Or were the Suns turning the ball over haphazardly like we've seen them do multiple times this season for a pocket of time? 6 turnovers in the third quarter, most of those leading to points for Minnesota in transition, and now all of a sudden the game flips on its head. Was it more so the former, what I'm speaking to, or the latter?
I feel like there's like an initial thing that pushed it, that caused it to go in the motion.
And that's my thing. Was that trigger the Suns doing, or was that trigger the Minnesota Timberwolves doing?
I do feel like Minnesota came out of the second half a little more inspired than the Suns, and maybe the Suns helped them get punched. It's like the Suns put their hands down. Right, we're talking about getting punched. It's not like Minnesota went in there and fought through some crazy defense that was guarding themselves and then bam, like somehow, some way, the best punch ever and it landed. Nah, Phoenix walked into the second half and they put their hands down and then they got punched in the face and then it all went downhill after that. So you're like, oh, they got disoriented by getting punched in the face. Well, why'd they get punched in the face? Clear faults. Right, your turnovers, your approach.
Self-inflicted still though. That's which
my
is
thing. Putting your hands down.
I'm not taking away from Minnesota at all, so don't miss my words. Please don't do that. But not you, just speaking generally. But it still feels like the Suns. You said it best yourself. You said the Suns can't beat other teams until they stop beating themselves.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah,
no, for sure. I spoke to it last week about Tom Brady talking about his coach up in New England. Didn't want to say his name because he didn't want to give him too much praise, but he said. He spoke to the good teams being the teams that most often get out of their own way. Those are the teams that find ways to win because they're knowing that they have things that are non-negotiables that they can't do in their process. One of the biggest non-negotiables with this Suns team, dating back to last season, dating back to as soon as they traded Chris Paul.
Yeah.
What wasn't an issue was turnovers. You trade him away for whatever reasons, that's cool, but you are now opening a Pandora's box for turnovers. And we've seen the turnovers, no pun intended, be something that they're snake bitten by almost ad nauseum this season. Like how many instances of games where they had or were working back to establish control of games did they then put themselves behind the 8-ball in a self-inflicted manner? And then the self-infliction compounds into now you can't get stops. Now you can't get rebounds where you were leading by 3 at halftime. Now you can't execute after timeouts when you're a top 6 team in terms of execution on points per possession after timeouts. You lose your identity starting with not being able to take care of the ball.
Do you know who had more turnovers tonight, the Timberwolves or the Suns?
The Timberwolves had, I think, one more, if I'm not mistaken. Or were they tied?
From what I'm seeing, it's tied 16-16. But if you watch that game...
Didn't feel like it.
No.
Because of this.
Why?
It's because when it rains, it pours as far as turnovers for the Suns. It's not just a one-off in terms of it's one turnover here and they recourse and they get back in alignment with the team that they desire to be. It's one turnover here, that bleeds into them giving up points in transition, and now they're going against a set defense and they're disoriented with their offense. They're not running plays. One-on-one isolation, someone dribbles off their leg, another turnover, and it's repeat. Tweaking of the context in the slightest bit, but it just compounds. And that's how it is. There's always an avalanche of turnovers for the Suns in most of their games. And that's oftentimes where they lose their games at.
And this might be a stupid question, right? This is the question
no such thing as a dumb question.
Well, this is maybe not stupid, but a question that we don't necessarily have the full answer to. So how do they change this, man? Because you are at the point of the season where you can't blame chemistry, right? No. You are at the point where you look at those things where it's compiling, it's compounding. You could look at the coach, and you could probably find a couple of ways that the coaching staff, of course, Mike Budenholzer is going to be the face of that. They're going to say, okay, what are they doing to stop this? And you got to look at the players. What are they doing to stop this? Where is the communication? Where is like a Chris Paul-like leader, right? That's going to be like, okay, let's calm down, give me the ball, and we're going to run something effective, right? Yeah. But this compounding, just this avalanche of getting in your own way and crumbling, right? Against good teams, bad teams, any team in between. What's the solution, Steven?
I mean, you got a point guard that you got on the absolute bargain, the biggest bargain of the offseason. How often did we see Tyus Jones bringing the ball up the court in these scenarios that we're speaking to, these pockets where they would turn the ball over left and right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that's going to solve everything. It tweaks the way you're trying to win your offense because you know your trigger for action was Devin Booker and pick and roll, getting two to the ball. KD the same, KD in the post. But what about using the person that you brought in to organize your offense, who was most natural at organizing and getting an offense efficiently into actions? I'm just saying that's something you might want to tap the sign on when you get into these adverse scenarios where the inevitable reeks its ugly head back up again. Instead of succumbing to it, you brought in a piece to meet that resistance with. Use it, like just a little bit.
I mean, yes, I agree. They should be using it more. I think it's a tough line to walk, though, right? Because the more that you use Tyus Jones as a point guard and an initiator, and yes, that is sure his best strength and what you bring him onto a team to use, the more you take the ball out of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant's hand. Tonight's a bad night to talk about it, right? Which is what my point is, which is you can't just have one identity.
For sure.
You can't just be the team that's going to run it through Tyus Jones, or you can't just be the team that's going to run through Devin Booker. You need to be the team that's coached up to the point, that's internally motivated to the point to where you can analyze what a game calls for, i.e. tonight it is Devin Booker, you end the game with 9 turnovers, right? Our offense is stagnant. We are dribbling the ball off of our hips. We are having Grayson Allen, who is the last person who should be initiating offense, minus whoever the center is on the court at the time. And you have Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, all on the court as well. You have to at least find a way to stabilize that. And then once it gets stable with Tyus, okay, maybe now we lean back into Book. You can't just be one or the other. And it feels like this team is either at the beginning of the season deciding to run a lot more through Tyus, have his usage percentage go up, have him shoot a lot more shots, and then almost ice him out on the complete other direction. It doesn't feel like there's a middle ground.
Yeah, that speaks to them just not having a true identity in terms of their process. You know they have triggers. We talked about their triggers ad nauseum this season. Durant and Booker in isolation and post-ups and then pick and roll. Oftentimes we're going to get 2, if not 2.5, to shift to the ball in some capacity. But what about your changeup? What's your counterpunch to pressure? What are your pressure releases? How do you get into those? Are you effectively getting into those when teams decide to up the pressure? And how often are you leaning on that versus reverting back to isolation, 17 dribbles against one defender that leads into somebody having to take one of those terrible grenade shots at the end of a shot clock? Like, which one? Like, if you have an identity, you're going to be organized when, okay, if a team decides to pressure us, like we saw in the first half, they come into after a timeout, pitch it to Devin Booker at the elbow. They overload to try to take away the passing lane from Bradley Beal. He backdoors. He gets a dunk. That's a pressure counter. But how often did they go to those pressure counters tonight? How many times did we see them go backdoor?
I'm trying to think of one.
How many times did we see them front KD in the post, someone flashes high, and they're able to hit them high-low on the backdoor, or someone else cutting behind the pressure?
See, what you're explaining is multiple steps in your offense, and I can't think of many instances where you have that.
Yes, what's the answer to the question? I'm giving scenarios based off of what we saw just 15 minutes ago and over the last 2.5 hours, and we're not seeing them do these things that are not complex. It's just a matter of you leaning into something that is a part of your identity.
Yeah.
Identity is there for you in times of adversity.
Yeah. And this is why us and fans, when they were at their low points, even earlier in the season, it felt a little bit different this year because you knew that you would get to a point where if you don't establish these good habits, right? If you don't get your identity, even if it results in losses because your team is injured or whatever it is, if you don't have an identity that you look at, you're not going to be able to hit a certain level, right? And if anything, you're going to continue to get in your own way. And we're going to keep talking about that game. I feel like we just had to get that all out, right? So let's get a poll in the chat. Let's get people involved here. The classic sports talk question. Did the Phoenix Suns lose that game, or did the Minnesota Timberwolves win that game? Drop down your comment below. Let us know. Sound off. Call in it. Okay, sorry, I got in my radio voice. But I do also want to set a like goal. Now, I understand the vibes are relatively low, but that doesn't mean that we can't smash a like goal. I'm going to be selfish with this one. I'm going to set this one. I think 250 is a good goal. Now, we are way behind on that pace because it's a lot easier to set a like goal when you come in with the wind music and the sexiest of saxes are playing. But I know we can hit that. Thank you so much for smashing that like button. Mac, Fidal, B. Will, PBTR, Colin, that dude, everybody who's in the chat with us today. We're going to get to your super chats by the numbers, Big Bright, Shining Star. Gerald's calling in from Footprint Center. And we're going to do all of that after our first break. Wee-oo. Breaking news, new sponsor alert. Shout out to our new friends over at Waymo, the autonomous ride company that is just a fantastic way to get around the valley. Now, listen, Waymo is one of those things where you will never forget the first time that you see it when you're driving down the street, and you'll never forget the first time that you get in the fully autonomous ride-hailing service that is Waymo, and an all-electric Jaguar. Okay, you know what kind of car you're getting into, and it's not a driverless car. It's an autonomous car. There are Waymo drivers. There's just no driver inside the car. They take over 150,000 trips per week across San Francisco, Los Angeles, and of course the Phoenix metro area. Waymo was the first company to serve a fully autonomous ride with no human behind the wheel in 2015, and they have over 40 million miles of real-world driving experience. That's enough to drive to the moon and back 80 times. Download the Waymo One app and ride today. And man, you can get in a Waymo and you can drive on over autonomously to Spinato's and enjoy the best pizza in the valley, and of course the official pizza of your Phoenix Suns. Now, listen, maybe the Phoenix Suns are inconsistent, but Spinato's, they buck that trend. And I know that because all I've been thinking about all week, Steven, is we had Spinato's in office last week. And I forgot that we were going to have it, and it showed up out of nowhere, and I was over the moon. I was so happy, and that was because Spinato's is absolutely delicious. It's also the ultimate place where you can watch Phoenix Suns games with the Phoenix Suns dancers and the Gorilla. Plus, you can enter to win all sorts of prizes with their pizza basketball contest. It's like horse, but with pizza. Get all the info on the watch parties and pizza basketball contests at SpinatosPizzeria.com. That is Spinato's, the official pizza of the Phoenix Suns. Quick, Steven, best pizza topping.
Best pizza topping?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to go with Italian sausage, right?
Oh, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think that you were going to go there. I don't necessarily disagree. Chat, let us know what your favorite pizza topping is. Let's change up the vibes a little bit here. Let's also get to your super chats. Love reading your super chats. We really appreciate everybody who tunes in here. And if you want your comments read absolutely 100% of the time, barring sometimes what Be Calm See Clearly says, drop any price super chat. That would be amazing. Mike from Mesa with a $1.99 super chat says, Booker, 9 turnovers helped us lose.
I mean, yeah. He got in the way. For as much as he helped in the first half to establish the lead that you did get.
Great first half.
Yeah.
Atrocious second half.
That was the, what do they call it, Jekyll and Hyde?
Absolutely.
It felt like one of those games, unfortunately.
I mean, Booker ended the second half with 10 points. He had 18 in the first, but a majority of those 10 points came in the fake comeback that the Phoenix Suns had at the end of that game where, are they going to get back in it? No, 9 turnovers is atrocious. 8 assists. So that assist to turnover ratio isn't going to get hit that much, and it wasn't just the fact that it was 9 of them, but like we mentioned, it was 9 in some pretty untimely spots and some unforced ones as well. It wasn't just Minnesota being bigger, which they are, and a great defensive team, which they are, with good individual defenders. Those are all true, but Book also got in his own way.
He did, and it's tough to see that after he just was literally the piece that drove them past the Los Angeles Clippers the other night on Monday. His playmaking in that game was so sharp. The way he controlled not just the primary defenders, but the secondary defenders, and made the right decision time after time after time after time, generating three-point opportunity after three-point opportunity without turning the ball over for this team on a super sky-high usage. And then, like I said, 48 hours later, come back and have a game like this. that's part of growth as a superstar in terms of the volume at which he's being double teamed.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the process. But I think he would be the first to admit that 9 turnovers is non-negotiable if you're talking about winning a single game.
It's a little bit different than when he had his turnover problems earlier in the season, when KD was out, when Beal was out, and when you faced a team like OKC who were basically focusing all 5 of their defenders on Booker, right?
Mm-hmm.
You still say he needs to be better, getting doubled and all that attention, but you have that built-in but.
Yeah.
You don't have that right now. You don't. Like, Minnesota's a great team, but there's no but. If anything, Minnesota had the lower hand tonight, right? They went in without Naz Reid, without Dante DiVincenzo, right? 2 great offensive options for them for a team that doesn't have a ton of offense. And they were still able to score 121 points on you and force 16 very untimely turnovers. Booker with over half of those. Thank you for the super chat. Mike from Mesa, things are bad or good when BComC clearly super chats normally. And this is one of those times. Sad face. I'm so exhausted with this team for real. In parentheses, down bad.
Man, I hear you. We're seeing the same play kind of play out in different ways. But oftentimes when it happens, they're getting the same result, which is coming up just short, and coming up just short in a way that's somewhat disappointing. It leaves a lot more to be desired.
And coming in on a 3-game win streak as well. I mean, the vibes, they shift so quickly, right? On top of the world the other day, you beat the Clippers by 2. Good, gritty win. You actually got punched and you held on, surprisingly, against a team that was above you in the standings. Now you lose to a team who's above you in the standings, and admittingly, even for myself, it feels like doomsday because the margin's so thin. This team is now just 2 games above 500. Thank you for your super chat, BComC clearly. Teddy's got 3. Let's start with this first one, $4.99 from Teddy. Thank you so much. Always consistent with those super chats. Says they take too long getting into their actions late in some games, and when they are down, plus playing bozo defense like tonight, they're cooked every time. Teddy also with another super chat saying, I know Dunn was hurt, but he really couldn't play more, especially late when they needed more stops. And finally, Teddy with his last one says, am I the only one who's getting the feeling that nobody wants Beal and that they're stuck with him for the rest of his contract? We might talk a little bit more like that at the end of the show, Teddy, but to address the first one, Steven, you immediately said yes to they wait way too long to get into their plays and their actions.
Yeah, the Suns' offense is about advantage creation. So when they're taking longer to get across the half-court line, you're putting yourself in a box. If you give yourself 16, only 17 seconds against a team that's applying pressure the way that Minnesota was in the second half, that 16 seconds, about 10, sometimes 11 of that is going to be used just to get into one primary action. Then you get the catch for wherever that primary action is desired, and that leaves you with 5 or 6 seconds to make advantage or play within an advantage that might have been created. That's not enough time to feasibly get through the layers of your offense that you need to.
Yeah, it's not. And especially when now you're in this situation where all your possessions matter, right? When you're getting down later in the game and you're running out of time and you're not used to running fast and quick. Like teams like the 7 seconds or less Suns, teams that live in transition, that run plays fast, they do it out of instinct because that's like their baseline level. And then they can flip the switch where they go like ultra fast. But if your baseline is we're going to wait till there's 15, 14, 13 seconds left to really get into the meat and potatoes of what we're trying to exploit as far as what advantages we're trying to create. When it comes to crunch time and you have 2 minutes left and you're down 8 points, now you feel rushed because you're not at a normal pace when you have to elevate that. That's just one of the few problems with the Suns, especially when it comes to pace. I want to bookmark, speaking of transition, their inability to complete a fast break. So let's touch on that a little bit later. Last super chat to round out for now. If you want your super chat read, which I know there are some people in here who want to talk about that, over 300 of you, make sure you drop a $4.99 or lower or higher super chat. Says, there's something that makes me insanely angry when teams, especially the Wolves, start to trash talk like they have the home court advantage. I get it, but if you're winning, you can do whatever you want.
When you beat a team 4 times just in the playoffs prior, and then you beat them in the one game that you played earlier this season, and then you come back to their crib and you beat them again, that's 6 straight wins against the team, that's relevant. And especially if there was already smoke that was pre-existing the playoff series that took place, in which you did what you did. I mean, if you want people to stop talking, you got to shut them up.
Yeah.
You can't shut them up with your mouth. You can't shut them up with your hands. You got to shut them up with your play.
Yeah, you got to win the game.
Yeah.
I've always been, and when Anthony Edwards did the DX chop, like, listen, I'm not going to say I like it,
But I can't. You
need to
can't
win.
be mad at him.
You can do whatever you want.
You got to meet his resistance with some of your own at some point.
Because if the roles are reversed, I'm telling my team to chat it up.
That's
talk
sports.
your talk.
That's sports.
Like, that's what you want.
That's sports.
But I get it. It's frustrating when somebody comes into your house and punks you like that. Kareem with the $1.99 super chat says, why didn't they double Ant? He struggles with them.
They did, though. They did. They spent a fair bit of time double teaming Ant. It wasn't on a possession by possession basis.
Do you think it should have been?
Because you can't. It's impossible to double team anybody for 48 minutes straight.
Yeah.
Or if he played 37 minutes, he's not gonna get double teamed for 37 minutes. You have to be spontaneous with it. Mix in after timeout sometimes. Mix in for a 2-minute stretch. We're gonna send doubles when he comes off of a pick. But you're just not gonna all-out double team for the entirety of his minutes on the court. To that point, though, they spent a fair share of time double teaming him today. He had a handful of turnovers, especially in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people were on Twitter talking about this is his Achilles heel, XYZ, ABC. He just got done asking Michael Jordan for advice about how to navigate being double teamed, how to accept it, and how to process through it. Like, these are the same conversations we had with Devin Booker, and we still have to this day at times, hence a game like tonight. They double teamed, and ultimately he eventually figured out how to navigate it because their pressure wasn't where it needed to be. And they also found ways to go about playing offense external of just Anthony Edwards as the primary trigger for action, which we'll get to a little bit later.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards had 7 turnovers tonight, of course.
I think about 4 or 5 of those came in the first half, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and that is also something to where Anthony Edwards had 33. Julius Randle had 28. Julius Randle was also getting his own tonight. That was something that we talked about that pregame.
Yep, but yes, to be specific, and had 5 of his 7 turnovers in the first half. 2 in the first, 3 in the second.
Yeah. All right. Well, we do have some awards to give out. Big, bright, shining star. Let us know in the chat who you think Big, bright, shining star is tonight, because it is time for that. Brought to you by Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for details.
I am a big, bright, shining star.
It does go to Kevin Durant tonight. Of course, not somebody with 9 turnovers. In fact, he had 0 and led the team in scoring, 33 points, 7 assists, 2 rebounds, 6 stocks. Steven tweeted this out there from our PHNX Suns account, but Kevin Durant might be, and in my opinion is, the most underrated defender in the NBA.
He's definitely the most valuable defender to the Suns.
And you don't hear people talk about him like that. Except for you, of course, but you're smart.
I appreciate it, but I'm not even doing it to be smart. It's just that it's abundantly obvious watching the Suns how much they lean on him, which is not a good thing for him to be as good as he is, as great as he is defensively. Like, there are arguments last season that he could have been second team all defense. I'm not saying he should have, but there are arguments, especially looking at what the numbers were in terms of advanced metrics, the value of what they were when he was on the floor defensively versus when he wasn't. That's leaning entirely too much on KD for someone that's already got a 30 or more percent usage on the other end of the court.
Yeah, KD also played 40 minutes tonight. Of course, Book played 41, but you had to.
And the usage within that 40, though, especially defensively.
Oh, yeah, he was all over. I mean, Randle's not an easy guy to cover. No, right? We talked about his deficiencies pregame, but we also said that he could be the type of guy to take over a game. And there was a stretch offensively for the Timberwolves where he was.
Yep.
And even if Karl Anthony Towns presents a different threat as far as constantly moving, running around 3, shooting from really deep like a guard, Randle plays a much more physical style of offense, which over 40 minutes can be tough when you're his primary defender.
Double checking. Okay, it says Julius Randle only took 3 3-point attempts tonight. He's been taking more than that on average with the Timberwolves. They've been forcing him to, like you spoke to pregame, to help shift their shot profile collectively a little bit. He was just not interested in taking threes when he realized that there were things that he could do inside the arc. That wasn't pertaining specifically to Kevin Durant because KD wasn't guarding him most of the time. But again, Julius Randle we'll speak to a little bit later. KD showed up the way that this team needed him to as a help defender, help with rim protection like usual, help with the switching, help with steals at times as well, and got out in transition for them. He just continues to get it done for this team in multiple ways past just putting the ball in the basket.
Yeah, but he was putting the ball in the basket really well. And might I remind everybody, he has an injured thumb right now. We are going to hear from Kevin Durant on that thumb. We'll eventually have behind the numbers for you. Gerald's going to be joining from Footprint Center. There are a lot of you in this chat right now, but those likes, they got to go up. I get it. The vibes are not high right now, but that's what we're here for. We're here to talk you through it. So drop that like. Make sure you're subscribed to PHNX Sports. If you're listening on audio, thank you so much for rating us 5 stars wherever you listen to us. And if you're watching us on TV, hi, Mom. I'm on TV. We'll be right back with so much more right after our second break. Maybe you want consistently good weed. That's going to be my theme for all of these ads is, can you be more consistent than the Phoenix Suns? And Colt Cannabis unequivocally can. It is consistently premium flower at a consistently affordable price. And of course, you can find them now at all of your local True Leaves with a True Leaf exclusive strain in Magic Marker. The Valley's been asking for her, and now Magic Marker is back. Of course, you can find it at trueleaf.com. Go find a local shop near you, or you can place an order, and in the little notes for it, say Espo sent me. Say Greg Esposito sent me to get some Colt Cannabis from my local True Leaf location. They just opened up a new one in Maricopa. And for all those diehards out there, we do a PHNX Puff show twice a month. That's going down tomorrow night. It is exactly what you think it is, and it is for diehards only. And of course, it is brought to you by Colt Cannabis. Get over to trueleaf.com, find your local shop, place an order, and tell them that PHNX sent you. You can also tell Mando that PHNX sent you, especially if your scent is not up to par. Listen, statistically speaking, somebody in the chat might not smell that good today, Steven. And maybe it's just not their day. Maybe normally they smell amazing. Maybe normally they use Mando, which is deodorant for every single part of your body. Pits, belly buttons, balls, butt cracks, grundles, and all the other words that I'm not even allowed to say right now. Yes, Mando is for those. It is a fantastic way to smell good throughout the day, and right now Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. Comes with solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash or deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And as a special offer for PHNX Suns listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code that equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code PHNX at shopmando.com. Please support our show. Use code PHNX at shopmando.com. Meatloaf, Animal, Qwerty, Colin, Jesus, Megan, Jeff, Cara, King Nacho, Amelia, everybody who's in the chat. We appreciate so much. All of you tapping in on a Wednesday evening late. And yes, we are still trying to make sense of the Suns' win streak getting snapped. Steven, is there any overarching theme on this game? Something you noticed that we haven't touched on yet?
Because we talked already enough about Jimmy Butler prospectively, this is a game where his presence very much could have been used, very much could have been felt, and would have helped to meet the resistance that they were receiving from Minnesota. And when I'm speaking to that, I'm thinking specifically in the fourth quarter. They may have went to it a couple times early in the first half, but it was intentional in the fourth quarter that Minnesota went to the Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert pick and roll, 4-5 pick and roll. Now, they flowed into it a few different ways, but the premise of a lot of their offense, when they were really kind of hitting the Suns with the uppercut in a sense, after the third quarter run that got them back into the game, it was that action and that action specifically. And it was Royce O'Neal that was initially guarding Julius Randle, and Mason Plumlee was in the game guarding Rudy Gobert. They tried to switch it a couple of times. They botched the coverage a couple of times. But generally speaking, the trigger for offense in that run that really put Minnesota in the lead and position to dictate the game, it was that 4-5 pick and roll. And it wasn't just shots coming from Julius Randle scoring in that context. A couple of times, one time Devin Booker got caught flat-footed, a pass away from the corner, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker knocks down one of 3 or 4 threes that he made in the fourth quarter. And just generally speaking, that specific action is what really helped them dictate down the stretch of this game.
You mentioned 2 names in there, Royce O'Neal and Mason Plumlee. I think both of them have been talked about a lot by Suns fans as maybe getting too many minutes tonight. Royce O'Neal played 32 minutes, scored 4 points, 2 of 8 from the field, 0 of 4 from deep. Did have 5 rebounds, added 1 assist, 2 steals, and 4 personal fouls, -10 in the plus-minus. What did you see from Royce out there that was missing?
this game didn't have the blue collar feel to it that typically allows for them to somewhat dictate in his minutes. And I think that's something that is a reason why I speak to this team needing another wing in addition to a starting caliber center to go with Nick Richards and make for like a fire and ice type of tandem in the center rotation. Rudy Gobert had some moments where he was kind of pushing Nick Richards around a little bit today. It was tougher for him to meet resistance, especially in that first half when he was on the roll. I think you get another center in that can help to mitigate some of that. I think that allows for Nick to be better. And I think that helps to structure the team in terms of the balance a little bit more too. But with Royce specifically, having a bigger wing or at least another body that you can viably put on someone like Julius Randle so that he doesn't have to literally shoulder the brunt of all of that matchup will help to give yourself a different option. And I think there's some other things that Bud could have pulled the trigger on.
Like?
I keep speaking to them in the cross-matching that they enjoyed with a very similar roster context last season. Now, it wasn't Nick Richards last season. It was Yusuf Nurkic. But against this same Minnesota Timberwolves team last season, we saw the Suns put Kevin Durant on Rudy Gobert, put Yusuf Nurkic on one of the shooters that they don't respect to the extent of having urgent closeouts on. It could have been Jaden McDaniels tonight. I know he knocked down a couple of threes, but would you rather him shoot threes or Ant Edwards and Julius Randle do what they do? You weigh your options. One makes a whole lot more sense than the others. I'm not saying that is even going to work, but you have to try when you see that something is not working. Royce O'Neal guarding Julius Randle and Mason Plumlee guarding Rudy Gobert in that 4-5 pick and roll was just not working today.
Yeah.
You cross-match and you mix up the matchups a little bit to at least try to counter what's being dictated to you, you at least see what you can. You have to at least empty the deck and try things at that point.
Well, speaking of emptying the deck, 9 minutes for Ryan Dunn returning from a left ankle sprain. Now, I think you can hopefully assume, not hopefully because you don't want it to happen, but that wasn't a Bud decision. That was a ankle's not feeling too great because this definitely felt like a matchup where Ryan Dunn would have helped. You mentioned a big body to guard Julius Randle. Body type wise, Ryan Dunn is much more the guy to handle the Julius Randle matchup than Royce O'Neal.
That one for sure, though.
Body wise, really?
I mean, but think about what Julius was doing to
get
Royce.
In the post and get down low.
Forget the plays. He was just going through his chest time after time. Ryan is a more wiry body compared to Royce. Royce can absorb more of those contact type plays, which is why he's better suited to guard those type of players. Whereas Ryan is a better suited defender to guard the Anthony Edwards types that might be physical, but they're physical 20 to 25 feet away from the basket versus between 7 to 10 feet or even closer than that. So I don't think Ryan had any business trying to guard
any business.
No, not Royce, not Julius Randle. Unless it happened to come on a switch, but from the onset of a possession, that should not be his matchup. Not in this game.
I mean, I don't think it should be Royce's matchup ideally either, right?
It's by roster context.
And I'm talking about on this roster. I mean, if Ryan Dunn was fully healthy, I would have thrown him on Julius Randle at least a little bit. A little bit.
Nah, I can't. If it's a switch, then you deal with it at that point.
Julius is pushing them all around.
I'm not putting Ryan in that position though. That's just me. I ain't putting him in that position.
That's
I don't
fair.
think he's not suited to guard players in a post like that right now. Talk to us in 2 years once he gets some NBA lifting in him.
Well, we're a rebuilding team. We're a tanking team, so you got to give him the opportunities anyway, right? Chat is all behind Steven. Everybody, let us know what you feel like in the chat. We got a lot of stuff to get to. Let's get to some sound. I mentioned earlier, Kevin Durant was playing with an injured thumb. This is KD on that injury.
If I'm out there, I ain't worried about it.
Okay, how did you injure it in the first place?
After one play, I just felt it after one play. I don't know exactly what happened, but I just hit somebody. But I'm out there. I'm good. I felt good tonight. Everything felt great tonight.
Well, we have more sound from the game. Let's knock that out. This is Mike Budenholzer on Book's 9 turnovers.
No, again, kind of similar, and, always give the opponent credit, give the team's defense, Minnesota's defense credit. They put a lot of attention on him. I think I got to give Devin better spacing, guys, outlets, better actions into it. So, Credit to Minnesota. And Devin's been amazing. He's been a great playmaker. So, it's just a lot of credit to Minnesota. We got to be better.
The we gotta be better part is my thing. I've been imploring for more dynamic touches for Devin Booker rather than him statically bringing the ball off the court or getting a catch, and then there's a hold, and then 2 or 3 seconds following that catch and hold, now comes a pick. The defense hasn't moved. Everybody that's in help is set within where they're going to be at, whether they're denying or they're gapping the strength of floor on his touch. There needs to be more flow to the Suns' offense. And oftentimes they lack it in stretches. Sometimes that's where some of the turnovers come from. The spacing might be decent, but because the action is so static, the help defense hasn't moved. And you're trying to create an advantage against a defense that's set. That's just not, it's going against the grain. It's not going to work all the time for you. You have to be more processed. You have to be more nuanced with your approach to it. I don't think they were that at all today. And especially in the second half. First half was a little bit better, but even still, I feel like in the first half, they made more shots than they did do the things that they need to that put them in a position to be one of the best offenses in the league.
Yeah, it's fun. Everybody in the chat is just talking about how Mike Budenholzer is not really saying anything there. And Chillmatic puts it best, like, this is who Mike Budenholzer is. If you know Bud's relationship with the media, he doesn't speak for a long time. He doesn't speak about a lot, and he gives you very vague terms. I feel like he actually gave you a decent amount of that one for Bud standards.
I feel like he said a lot right there.
For saying we have to put Devin in a better position, right? Like, that's at least admitting that it's, like, yes, you don't get to 9 turnovers without some of those being on poor decision-making from Book.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those.
But
all 9 are not that.
My rebuttal to that, though, is, like, yeah, you can say the right thing, but what are you doing to not have to put yourself in the position to be having to answer a similar question reworded differently, where you're just picking through 2 or 3 hit words, albeit they align with what the issue was, but you're recycling them. How many times do you have to go through the same thing before you start to adjust and keep yourself out of those positions? Like we talked about 2 segments ago, the good teams find a way to not put themselves in those positions.
Yeah. We also have more sound coming from Mike Budenholzer. I want to remind everybody, we are trying to hit 250 likes. I know right now it might feel like a long shot, but I know eventually. I know we're going to get there. Brick by brick, like by like. Thank you all so much for joining us. We have Mike Budenholzer's final comments, I believe we're going to have from Gerald before he joins us in just a couple of minutes. This is Bud talking about Royce and why Ryan Dunn ended up not getting a lot of minutes.
I would say Ryan's fine. I don't think it was the ankle. We went with Royce with the starters and played Royce a lot tonight. And, Ryan just didn't get probably the normal or what we expected to play him, just kind of the flow of the game. But he's healthy. He's good.
If he's healthy and good, again, there's no reason with where this roster is right now that he should not be playing close to 25 minutes a game. His defense is far too valuable to a team that does not have a notable point of attack defender independent of him. Like, where is the controlling of an opposing offense going to come from if you don't have your best point of attack defender out there?
I'm not going to lie.
And he's healthy.
That answer actually kind of upset me a little bit, because now we're sitting here. This is 2 games in a row now where I personally, and I know many people left the game thinking one of our players got injured because it made no sense why they weren't playing at certain times. Against the Clippers, I get it. Mason Plumlee played better than Nick Richards for a majority of that game. It got to the point where Mason Plumlee needed to be off the basketball court and Nick Richards was not on there.
At the most meaningful point of the game.
And we thought to ourselves, what?
Thought he was hurt or something.
We literally were sitting here thinking we got to wait for Gerald to give us an update on whether Nick Richards is hurt.
And Gerald was like, sorry, guys, there is no update.
And that's that is a pointed decision by your coach. And then tonight, whether we can agree on Julius Randle or not, we all agree that Ryan Dunn, fully healthy, should be getting more than 9 minutes tonight.
Yeah. Your team needs stops, for one, because they have to meet the resistance that you conceded, which now has Minnesota flowing into their offense. but you don't have anybody that's stopping the ball often enough. You don't have anybody that you can rely on to make the rotations that they need.
Mm-hmm.
Like the little things that Ryan Dunn does for them defensively, we even saw it a little bit in the first half, albeit it wasn't to his normal impact, obviously coming back from the ankle injury and whatnot, but he's just far too invaluable for this team on the defensive end of the floor for him to not be getting the requisite amount of minutes.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm a little frustrated by that. So we're going to take a breath. We're going to take our final break. We're going to come back. We're going to keep talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Gerald is going to join us from Footprint Center. We have so much more by the numbers, everything that we need to break down, a look at the West standings, packed show. Per usual, hit that like button. We're getting to 250 one way or another. We're getting there together, and we're going to do it all right after this break. Tell me if you heard this before. Sanderson Ford is consistent. Consistently, no pressure, no hassle, no nonsense. You know, if you ever need a vehicle or if you need to recommend a friend to get a vehicle, you know exactly where to go to. And that is Sanderson Ford. It's still technically the new year. Yeah, the month of January has felt like about 6 years, but it is still technically the first month of 2025, and you can still enter this new year in style with a new vehicle and a brand new you for the year. Take the whole family out in style, save $11,000. It's a lot of money off of an expedition or hit the trails and make your own with a new Bronco Badlands. The best part about Sanderson Ford isn't just the fact that they have a massive facility, a campus, whatever you want to call it, or the Starliner Diner, or the fact that they have people there who are genuinely invested in you. It's the fact that it all comes together in one place. People who no pressure, no hassle, no nonsense you into sales and putting you in the right vehicle. And of course, America's most awarded Ford dealership, Arizona's most awarded Ford dealership for customer satisfaction. That is Sanderson Ford. And I'm a satisfied customer of our friends over at Game Time. Megan is in the chat, my beautiful wife. I had to get her a fantastic birthday gift. You have to give the people you love great gifts, right? And there's no better gift to give, in my opinion, than an experience, right? A live show, whether it's music, sports, theater, comedy, whatever your personal taste is, you always want to go to a live event. They're tons of fun. And Game Time, well, they make it that much easier, Steven. Through Game Time Picks, which filters out the fluff, you can look at the view from your seat. You can get all-inclusive pricing with just one flip of a switch. No surprise fees when you check out. And, of course, you can sort the seats by value all easily from Game Time. And also, if you can find a deal better than Game Time, they will pay you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets. Lowest prices. Guaranteed.
What time is it?
Game time.
Woo-woo.
Woo. Woo! Let's get the energy up. Come on. I don't think anybody wants to do that, but I want to get to super chats that we have, Steven. Love knocking out
Let's get it.
your super chats. Wow, we have way more than I thought.
We appreciate each and every last one of y'all that took the time out y'all day to listen to us yap about basketball.
Yeah.
And also decided to send us a couple pennies as well.
And you know what? Speaking about yapping with us about basketball, slight detour before we get to our fantastic super chats from our wonderful comment section. We have a watch party.
Yes, we do.
Together, Gila River Resorts and Casinos Wild Horse Pass this Friday. Suns, Warriors, get there before the pregame show if you want to say hi. If not, we're going to do pregame 30 minutes before tip-off. Then we're going to watch the Suns game together in all of its glory or misery. And the best part, Steven.
What's that?
It's absolutely free.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing?
All you got to do is show up to Gila River Resorts and Casinos Wild Horse Pass. And yes, you can talk basketball with Steven in person.
So you get to pull up, enjoy basketball,
Facts.
talk to the PHNX Suns group, and not spend a penny.
Not a dime.
That sounds like a deal to me.
There you go,
I feel
Noah.
like we should see a lot of people there.
And you get to meet Crazy Computer Guy. And I know Buddha, if he's not going to be there, he's going to be at the next one. He's always consistently out there and consistently sending us super chats. Thank you so much for being here, Buddha. 499 says, when the trash talking starts, that's when Book needs to stop trying to be legendary and start taking it personal.
Man, that sounds like someone that is very much, they have their mind made up about Book in certain scenarios. I'm not going to go that far, but I would say I would just like to see that resistance be brought prior to the point of an opponent feeling comfortable enough to start to speak that way or act that way or have that certain disposition in that moment. That's my thing.
Yeah, I do think that it feels like you don't see Book I guess getting into like that hot-headed mode that he got into a little bit when he was younger, when he had that chip on his shoulder, it felt like a little point to prove. I think he still has it in him, but it just felt a little different back then. Not for better or for worse, because we see that sometimes having big-time emotions. I mean, Book's been killed for it, right? Getting upset when somebody gets in your head or the refs.
That's literally why the Minnesota Timberwolves don't care for him too much. Because when he was giving it to them 4 seasons ago, he was letting them know about it too.
Yeah.
He was letting them know about it to their fans while he's bringing the ball up the court. Everybody's seen the video.
Yeah.
And generally I've heard stories about Timberwolves fans talking about him talking crazy after he just put up 50 on them.
Teddy with a 199 super chat. Thank you, Teddy. Says, need to call Toronto for Chris Boucher.
Man, I don't think Chris Boucher's changing things.
He fixes everything.
He has the same stature as Bol. That's no slight to him or Bol. But the Suns need somebody that can be a more imposing figure in that front court / wing dynamic of their rotation right now. I don't think Boucher, he is a solid player, but I don't think he's bringing this team what they need in terms of that in particular.
Speaking of what I don't need, I can't read these super chats. This is a line. This is the line. This is the line. The line becomes clearly you crossed it. Okay. We're going to have a $5 super chat from Cameron Thomas. Thank you, Cameron. Says, last season we agreed that Bud and Monty are way too much alike, so him not making adjustments shouldn't be surprising at this point of the season.
Man, they said what they said. I really got too much to say in response to that one.
Yeah, I do have responses to people in the comment section saying, I'm typing be calm, see clearly super chats. It's not true. It's not true at all. Okay. Gerald's going to be joining us in just a couple of minutes, but I think that means it is the perfect time to get to By the Numbers presented by Desert Financial Credit Union, Arizona's #1 credit union named by Forbes.
What's in the box?
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
This one is tough. This one is tough, man. Like y'all always know, I like to start with the 2 numbers that I choose at the bottom to help tell the story of everything else. Start with the turnovers, the margin in terms of how many turnovers the Suns had in comparison to Minnesota is as slim as it gets, like literally as slim as it gets. One more live ball turnover and one more general turnover.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is, and this is a perfect time to paint this picture, the timing, where Minnesota's were more so dispersed out, and a solid bit of those, I think 2 or 3 of those came within the last 90 seconds of the game. Speaking to them being spread out, it didn't have that avalanche, overwhelming feel and impact to the game to where it just completely shifted and swayed the context and flow of it and put it in favor of the Suns to that extent.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the huge difference in the game, because the rest of the margins were relatively close. The 3-point shooting was close. Free throw shooting was relatively close. Like everything else was relatively close. That's one of the biggest things. And the way that it avalanched into momentum for the Timberwolves in the second half.
It's the story that is as old as the Suns season, basically. And we do have Kevin Durant talking about those turnovers and it kind of feeling like this team is spiraling after them.
Try not to panic. Try not to get... try not to let that control the next few possessions. Just it's the next possession mentality. Usually when you get 1 or 2 turnovers in a row, you can just compound bad plays after bad plays. So that's a part of the growth as a team. I don't think we spiral out of control after a few turnovers, but that gave them momentum. And when you give a team like this momentum, they take advantage of it. But adversity is good. We just still trying to still want to get better around this time. And as tough as games like this tonight is, it's something we can watch on film and learn from those mistakes.
Yeah, the clock is ticking though on learning from the mistakes, because you're at a important part of the regular season where you have a chance to get to that position that you ultimately desire to be in terms of the Western Conference standings. And you also have opportunity against opponents that are going to be very much in your way to do that, but also get to your ultimate goal, which is to be hoisting the Dario Bryant Trophy in June.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get to those points if you're still trying to learn the same mistakes that you all were making earlier in the season. At some point, there has to be a learning curve moment where you realize the mistakes and you don't make them again, or don't make them as in a timely manner at worst.
I swear you could have played that for me and you could have said it was from game 10. And I would have believed you because I swear I've heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
I swear I've heard you have to give the other team credit, not just earlier tonight, but earlier this season.
Mm-hmm.
Adversity is good. We're still learning. This isn't the end of the world, right? And I don't think that we're spying. I don't think it's like, hey man, when you start answering the same thing the same way, or even just the first red flag is, man, I get this question asked to me quite a bit, right? Red flag number 1. There's a pattern there. Now you're giving the same answer about how you need to learn from it. There's a difference between saying you need to learn from it and what, Steven?
Actually applying the lessons learned.
And we haven't seen this team really apply many of those lessons that in multiple areas, not just the turnovers, it feels like.
That's the issue, man. They have to just like stop it. It's very simple, but it's not.
Yes,
it's not,
but again,
like,
my question is how? If
it
they
was
could, should they have not already done that?
If it was like a process thing where you're working through certain things and there's like a timing mechanism to things that just isn't working right now because everybody's new, the system is new, and all of these different things, you have a live defense in front of you. That's one thing, but the turnovers are something that's very much in their control. It's discipline, it's discernment, it's decision-making, it's organization. And I think the organization piece, speaking to the point we made earlier in the show, get 2 or 3 turnovers in a row, put the ball in the hands of a player who you all have tapped the sign on in terms of not hesitating to let people know that, yeah, he's got the highest assisted turnover ratio in all time.
Yeah.
It has that was the asset for you. The main reason why you brought Tyus Jones in was to counterbalance the inevitable turnover issues that your big 3 have when they have a high usage.
Yeah.
That's your fail proof right there.
Well, it's another one of these things that we look at. To me, unfortunately, coaching is continuing to kind of be put in the spotlight. Not the only thing that needs to improve or be fixed, but we're talking about Tyus Jones need to be used differently. Devin Booker needs to be used differently. The team's turnovers haven't been improved. Team didn't have his own package. What was that, a week and a half ago?
Yep. Martin Luther King Day.
These are trends. These are things that don't or have not been going away. And on well-coached teams, stuff like this, first of all, not only is it unacceptable to start with, it gets weeded out pretty quick. And we just haven't seen that from this team. We did see a super chat from B Calm C Clearly, a normal one, so I'll read it. It says, it's called Deja Vu, talking about what I have. It says, maybe it's time serious one. I don't know exactly what the end means, but I completely agree that I'm having deja vu. Also, we appreciate everybody who is watching us on TV. If you are, always head over to gophnx.com for more of the fun. The party always continues, whether it's Suns, whether it's Cardinals, Diamondbacks, ASU, U of A, Mercury, which had a huge week. The Mercury did, Rising, everything in between. We have it all right here at gophnx.com, including Steven's notebook. Gerald put trades together, and of course, you can become a diehard over at gophnx.com as well. We have still over 300 of you in here. We are waiting for Gerald Bourguet. He is sending us lots of videos. He keeps on sending them over and over and over again. It's okay, because we're going to keep doing it. Let's take a quick look at the standings as we wait for the next comment from Kevin Durant about this team. Now, in the West, this game was massively important, Steven. Why?
This game was massively important because you were starting to build momentum. You were handling your business against teams that you were supposed to. And then you also trickled in a game against an opponent that was on the status that you were desiring to be in terms of the Clippers. Handled your business in that. Wasn't the prettiest of games, but you finished in the right side of the win-loss column. That's where you want to be. You're building up momentum for this all-important stretch that we've spoken to in terms of pockets of games for them. And then the opportunity is presented for them. They do a decent job in the first half. And then we see all of the weaknesses that made the lows that they hit so loud all come back in swooping fashion in the second half.
Yeah, and this is how tight things are in the Western Conference. Coming into tonight's game, they were half a game back from Minnesota in the 8th seed. Now they are in the ninth seed, a full game behind the Dallas Mavericks, who are now the 8th seed. Minnesota Timberwolves are now a game and a half above the Suns at the 7th seed. Clippers still now sitting solid at that 6th seed. And Golden State, who is sitting 2 seeds below you just outside the play-in, is about to secure a victory over the number 1 seed in the Western Conference.
Yep.
So,
and the other big thing being the direct head-to-head matchups. I don't
Golden
know.
State Phoenix coming up on Friday.
Golden State Phoenix coming on Friday, but I think the Suns play the Timberwolves one more time this
Two
season.
more times.
They still have 2 more?
They have 2 more. I looked on the schedule earlier, but they are now down 0-2.
So you have to go 5. You have to win the next 2 games against the Timberwolves just to tie.
Yeah.
That's the situation you don't want to be in, especially coming the end of the season. If you're 6th or 7th and you're a fringe playing team, you don't want to be in that one-off. You want to be firmly in the playoffs.
Nick Richards actually mentioned that as a goal. And I don't think we ever played that audio, but he was talking to the media, and he mentioned that the 6th seed is a goal for this team.
As it should be.
As it absolutely should,
that should be their floor.
And that's why we can celebrate all we want, them beating the Clippers and all the important things that comes with that, because that secured their season series with LA.
Yep, exactly.
But just as important as that is, tonight was maybe even more important, considering you are closer to Minnesota in the standings, and they are a team in the way of you even getting to home court advantage in the play-in, as you were to Los Angeles. Gerald has called in. Make sure you hit that like button, because it is almost that time for Girth. In the meantime, as we're getting him all set up, I want to read the poll that we put in the chat earlier, Steven. Did the Suns lose this game, or did the Timberwolves win this game? Coming up next on... Okay, sorry. Do you want to guess what won with 61% of the vote?
Judging by the tone from the chat, they would probably say that Minnesota took it to the Suns more than the Suns squandered the game.
61% say it was a Suns loss.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 61% Suns loss. I would agree with that. The Timberwolves definitely punched them in the face. And maybe this is a classic radio question we can ask Gerald Bourguet. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for Girth coming up next.
In the darkness, beyond the light, there shall only be one. Welcome to Girth!
Hey, everybody. Hi. I did a whole ad
There we
read.
go.
I did a whole ad read, and you couldn't even hear me. Guess what? It's time for From the Home Court, presented by the Carol Royce team. Your home sold guaranteed realty, where Carol will guarantee to sell your home for 100% of the market value, or she'll pay you the difference. Learn more at carolroyceteam.com. Hi, Gerald.
Hi, guys. How are we doing tonight?
Doing okay. Not doing too great. Win streak is over. The vibes are ruined. I have to ask you the classic sports talk question that we put in the chat. Gerald, did the Suns lose this game, or did the Minnesota Timberwolves win this game?
That's a good question. Little column A, little column B. I would say the Suns obviously self-inflicted wounds in the third quarter, but it was only a 4-point game at halftime. You could argue the Suns should have been up by more. But you got to give the Timberwolves credit. They threw a lot at Devin Booker with the blitzing, with the double teaming, with taking away the outlets. You know, we obviously played the clip, but Bud and KD both kind of agreeing they've got to give Devin Booker more outlets, more options when he does get doubled and blitz, because they know that he's going to attract 2 to the ball. But with that being said, it does also feel like the Suns had a lot of self-inflicted wounds. Not all of those Devin Booker 9 turnovers were a product of what Minnesota was doing defensively. It was one of those nights that we've seen this team have, where the lead playmakers, the lead ball handlers are just a little too sloppy with the ball. And it came back to hurt them. And it came back to hurt them again. Like we keep talking about this over one stretch, it felt like. You know, in the first half, they only had 6 turnovers total. And then in that third quarter alone, I think they had 7 or 8. So that was where the game obviously spiraled away for them. Kevin Durant kind of disagreed that they spiraled, and that it was more so about, having a next possession mentality and all that type of stuff. But we've seen it from this team far too often. So I do think the Timberwolves have been playing good basketball recently. I think this was their fourth win in a row. They're kind of getting their season back on track, much like it felt like the Suns were heading into this game. But yeah, too many mistakes on the table. And again, it felt like when the Suns get punched, they kind of fold a little too easily.
Gerald, what was your assessment of Bud's response when speaking to them not being organized on offense and really honestly kind of regurgitating the same answers to questions reworded in a way that's present in today's press conference?
Yeah, look, Bud is one of those guys that he's just not going to give us his honest, unfiltered, detailed thoughts a lot of the time. And I know some coaches just don't like doing the whole media thing, and it is what it is. It comes with the territory sometimes. But yeah, it did feel like they were a little disorganized. It felt like Minnesota's defense took them out of what was working in the first half. It felt like the Wolves, you got to give them credit on this front. They are very good at taking away opponents' three-point shots and three-point attempts. And we have seen this Suns team against good defenses kind of struggle with that. So I still think, there's been a lot of talk and shoot around this morning in practice about playing random, how it's different here, playing random in Phoenix versus what they had in Milwaukee, and Bud kind of trying to figure out how to get this group to learn those principles and take them to heart and figure out what playing random looks like here. Tonight was a good example of how it's still clearly a work in progress, despite the fact that they have made progress over the last couple of weeks.
Gerald, you also were in the room when Kevin Durant was asked about if the trade deadline looming is a distraction. This is what Kevin Durant had to say on that.
No, I don't think so. We grown men. Most of these guys been in the league 8+ years, 9+ years. They understand the business, man. There's nothing new. It's about doing your job and controlling what you can control every single day. Until your name is called or it's not called, you still got to do your job, even if it's here or in another jersey. That's just a part of the business we're in. I think everybody understands that. I want everybody on this team. I want everybody to feel comfortable with their role and their future and their contract, all of that stuff. I would love that for each one of my teammates. And for myself, I've been traded before too, So I understand part of around this time is a hectic part, but you dive into the work and everything else will take care of itself.
Now, I 100% that Kevin Durant meant that earnestly. He does have a high opinion of his teammates. He understands that they are all pros. But you could also take this if you are one of those guys that fits into that category in the locker room who is worried about their role or the trade deadline or upset with the amount of minutes that they're playing right now. That's a pretty clear message from one of your team leaders, your best player on your team, what the status quo should be heading into the trade deadline and what he expects out of his teammates. So I don't think this was a shot at his teammates from Kevin Durant. I don't think it was him trying to send some type of message, but I do think if you are someone in the Suns locker room in that camp, I don't know how you can hear that type of response and not know what is expected of you moving forward.
Gerald, looking at Ryan Dunn returning from the ankle injury today, a lot of people in the chat were feeling like he should have played more. We got some questions, and I answered a little bit earlier speaking to how he could have been impactful on this game, and it wasn't guarding Julius Randle specifically, because I don't think the Suns had an answer
we had a little back and forth about that. He had to throw a little shot at me.
I don't think the Suns had an adequate answer for the bull in the china shop that he is, but I don't think that Dunn was the answer for him. But just generally, do you feel like Dunn could have had impact more than what he was given opportunity to put on this game?
Absolutely. And you could ask that about any opponent, any game where Ryan Dunn only plays 9 minutes. I made sure to ask Bud that specifically because I knew it was something that people would be curious about. And it was something I was curious about because if Ryan Dunn is good to go, why are you changing up the starting lineup? Why are you only playing him 9 minutes off the bench? Is it a matchup thing? Was the ankle not 100%? And Bud obviously said that Ryan Dunn is fine after the game and that it was just kind of a flow of the game thing, to which I'm asking if you are heading downstream in a direction of a game where Ryan Dunn only plays 9 minutes, you need to paddle your ass in a different direction and change the flow because Ryan Dunn should not only be playing 9 minutes regardless of the opponent unless he gets hurt. So I don't understand why Dunn only played 9 minutes. I don't think Royce was terrible. I don't think he shot the ball well. but it's one of those things where I don't understand why you're tweaking your starting lineup again when it felt like, you moved Bradley Beal to the bench for this guy. And this rookie has brought a lot of energy. He's brought defense. He's brought size. He's brought athleticism, which you badly need. So no, I don't think you were going to put him on Julius Randle. I don't think he ultimately changes the outcome of this game if the Suns play like that in the second half. But he's a guy that needs to be out on the floor for minimum 15 to 20 minutes a night right now.
It's really weird to go from starting to 9 minutes in your first game back when you're already rusty, right? Like that to me just feels like either not reading the room or just not caring about the effect. Because how could you go to a player and say, hey, we're going to start you. Okay, you got injured, you come back. And then we're actually not only not going to start you, we're going to basically pull you from the rotation. He played the least amount of minutes tonight. And according to Bud, he was fully healthy. That dude in the chat is asking, though, why are Dunn's minutes being questioned more than Nick Richards? Nick Richards played 25 minutes tonight. A lot of people in the chat not thrilled with 15 minutes for Mason Plumlee. Do you feel like Nick Richards should maybe be getting a little bit more burnout there?
I do. And I think it's one of those, I know if we had asked Bud about that, it would have been, oh, it's a gut feel thing. And I think the problem was in both of those Mason Plumlee stints, he left him in for like a minute or two too long. And the first stint was really bad in that first quarter, so bad that they went small to close out the first quarter there. I think in the second half, that stint kind of bridging the third and fourth quarters was definitely like 2 or 3 minutes too long. And that was the time to put Richards back in there. And I know he would have had to play 10 minutes straight. And I think maybe there's something to the effect of in Charlotte, he was a backup, so he wasn't logging these long stints very often. I know he started for them earlier in the year. He started for them quite a bit last year when Mark Williams was injured, but it's been a while since then. So playing him 10 straight minutes, I'm sure there was probably some concern about fatigue. If you look at Nick Richards' minutes, he's not a guy that even when he was starting was playing 36, 35 minutes a game. But I do think just 2 to 3 less minutes for Mason directed at Nick Richards would have been beneficial, even though he obviously didn't have a great game tonight either.
That's all I got.
Anything else on this game, Gerald? Final thoughts on an unfortunate loss?
Not really, man. It's unfortunate because I feel like they were progressing. I do feel like they were, like we had talked about, they had an easy slate of opponents. They were capitalizing on it. It felt like they were building positive momentum. But most of the main tests that we've seen them have, they have failed pretty spectacularly. Like tonight wasn't a spectacular failure, but that second half sure felt like it. That Cleveland game that we had recently, we talked about that, how they just kind of got demolished in that one. Like, yeah, you have the Pistons win. Yeah, you have the Clippers win. But when you start playing legitimate teams that could win their conferences, you start to see the cracks in this team. And they're running out of time to shore those things up.
Well, coming up next is the Golden State Warriors on the road, which means not only will Gerald be on the show, Gerald's going to be with us at Wild Horse Pass. Come meet your favorite Suns beat reporter at Gila River Resorts and Casinos, Wild Horse Pass on Friday. Right, Gerald?
And I just want to give I am actually out for that game.
No.
I wish I could be there. I'm heading
Gerald.
home.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
It's okay. I'm heading to Amy's baby shower, so I have a good reason for it. But if you are at a Suns game, say hello if you see me. Jacob, my new friend Jacob, said hello to me. We got a picture together, and he said he watches the show. So shout out to Jacob. Thank you for watching, and thank all of you in the chat. I promise I will be at the next watch party, so
we'll have more. That's on me. That's on me, everybody. But you can follow him at Gerald Bourget on social media. He's always writing over at gophnx.com. And hit me up. I'll give you his address so you can say hi to him in person if you're not going to see him at the watch party. Thanks, Gerald.
Thanks, guys.
Steven, you're going to be there, right?
Of course I'll
Noah, you're going to be there, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure Espo's going to be there.
I don't think the Pistons play on Friday. So
yeah, Pistons don't play on Friday. We do have another super chat. Thank you. We have a couple super chats, but I'm not reading BComC Clearly's. We do have one from Chris. Thank you. Chris says, I'm ready to pull the plug on this roster. Not sure what this would look like, but I'm extremely frustrated. Anyone with me?
Yeah, I can't fault anybody for feeling like that. I'm very kind of trained in understanding the process, even through the highs and lows, the peaks and valleys, the ebbs and flows. And Lord knows there have been valleys this season with this team. but there's still light at the end of the tunnel in terms of them ducking the play-in tournament, getting into the playoffs firmly, and being better positioned come that time of the season than they are obviously right now. Now, there's a lot of work that has to get done. There's going to be a lot of challenges presented to them via the schedule as well. But I feel like if we talk about at the end of their 82-game marathon, they figured it out. Let's say they end up with the 5th seed and they have a somewhat favorable matchup in the first round of the playoffs. Are you going to make all of these lessons that were issues and plagues your season ceiling worth it at the end? Matt Ishbia didn't pay for this team to be the best team in the regular season. They're supposed to be clicking in the playoffs. I'm not absolving them. I'm not giving them any excuses or outlets for mediocrity at all. But just make these lessons and the issues that are persistent this season add up to something that's worth it for you at the end of the season. That's all I'm waiting on.
I don't disagree with you. Someone in the chat says play-in would be a failure. I
could not agree more.
Unless you make it to the finals like the Miami Heat did.
Yeah.
But then it's not a failure of a season. It's a season where you overcame some things that you need to solve going into next. Because guess who didn't win the championship that year?
Miami.
Right. So I agree. The expectations have always been higher for this team. Expectation is to win games like tonight from a macro view. But if you follow along this team the whole season, you know that what you saw tonight was something that you were used to seeing. You can get used to seeing us because we're going to be back on Friday, pregame, postgame show live from Gila River Resorts and Casinos, Wild Horse Pass. Make sure you come say hi. Maybe I'll FaceTime Gerald if he's not flying or something. I feel very bad for putting him on the spot, but that's on me. I'm going to get better. I'm going to hit the film room, okay? I'm going to get tape. You have to give Gerald credit. The opposing team was very good. He came with logic and reason. And, but this is not something I'm spiraling out over. We are just going to fix this, and we're going to learn lessons throughout the season.
And the lessons being learned in real time.
I promise you I will never do that again.
This was, about 26, 27 hours ago? We had this conversation, and look at the growth already. See what happens when you apply the lessons that you're learning in real time?
Oh, you're like a proud father. You can follow my proud father at Stephen PG3 on Twitter. Of course, you follow the show at PHNX_Suns. Thank you so much to Noah behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen. Thank you to that dude, Rodriguez, Ted Offensive, Holden, Lance, Tony, Meatloaf, Priscilla, Amelia. I know you're in the chat too. Megan, my dad, Kara saying goodnight. Everybody who dropped a super chat. Thank you all so much for rocking with us late into your Wednesday evening. We will be back with so much more on Friday. But until then, just enjoy a day off of Suns basketball. And remember, if we win on Friday, we're so back.
We all silly like the mayor.